Hello everyone, it's Abandoned, back from my grave to talk about spawn TPs. When to use them, why to use them, and what makes them effective when they are good. Now the first one I'm showing off here is just the one on Dorado, which is very common. And you'll notice it pretty much completely negates the walk back time, especially if the cart is in this courtyard. It's pretty clear that that's useful, just like looking at it, but the reason why, and like the rule of thumb for using spawn TPs, is you want to use it on a map where the teleporter will almost completely cut away your walk back time. Like if the spawn distance to walk back was double this, I just wouldn't use this TP because it wouldn't be providing as much advantage. The other thing you're sacrificing here is you don't have your E ability, so you're just kind of a a strange Reaper. You don't have any without any abilities. Now on Dorado specifically, I find teleport isn't super strong. Outside of a spawn TP, which is why I tend to leave it there. There's no like amazing, fantastic rotations. Like all the angles you might like are blocked off for standing TPs, and you don't get a ton of use from just on reaction. Though that does depend on the enemy team comp, which is the other thing to keep in mind. Both the enemy team and your team actually is what I would consider when placing this on TP, because if you have something like Mercy BAP and you're playing Death Ball, you're not normally gonna get a ton of picks unless the enemy team's running like double sniper or something. The only thing with double snipers, a lot of time you actually want TP against them, so it's not very good there, but if your team's running something that gets more picks like Zen and a Roadhog, that can be really good for spawn TP, just because, or Doomfist especially, is if Doomfist trades and he has a spawn TP, well that's like fantastic. He has near instant spawns and the enemy team has to walk all the way back. Another good thing to keep in mind while we're on Dorado is where your teleporter brings you out, because second point seems like it would be a really good spawn TP, but it actually leaves you in a really awkward place to try and contest. If there was like a way to bring it to high ground, like if you could fit it in there somehow, maybe it'd be good, but if you place it just out of spawn here, this isn't realistic since the spawn borders aren't there to prevent TP, but the enemy team just kind of has this free shot. It's not very well defended. It leaves you out in the open once your teammates take it. Like, I'll place it sometimes when I actually have to contest, but I never leave a standing TP on this map here. It's just, or at least not on second. It's just not very advantageous, especially with all the high ground on this area. Like, there are so many places that you want to use TP on second of Dorado, and just leaving it for a spawn TP that's not that good is just not worth it, I think. I will be going through all the notable spawn TPs. You might be thinking Lijiang, the markets rollout, but well, really that in itself, it's more of a rollout. You can't really leave the TP in the Lijiang window because it'll get broken. Now, this part of Lijiang is a pretty solid spawn TP, especially with how brawly this map tends to be. It's not as good as the Dorado first point, for example, because you'll see it only brings you about halfway back to the point. Though I just find because of the map rollout and how it tends to play, it's often worth it. Though I just consider how the map is going personally. Besides team comps, just looking at how the players are playing and how the team fights are going can change what you want to do with spawn TP. Like if the fights are very clean, there's no staggers, there's no like drawn out battles, then you might just want to break the TP and try and get more value of it elsewhere. And even if TP is getting use, but your team's just staggering in lost fights, you might just want to break it to try not to encourage staggering sometimes. Okay, next up is the fishbowl map of Lijiang, which also probably not the one you guys are thinking. I'm not going to show markets because that is literally just a rollout. This map does have a spawn TP though. Not in the window, because that has the exact same problem as Night Market does, is if you try and put it in the window, it will break. But you can actually just put a respawn TP and try and sneak it in right about there. Notably, it's not visible from there. It's not visible from there. The enemy team can only really get to it based off the audio cues, and it's pretty sneaky. It's a nice nice respawn TP if this map's going a bit long. You can do the same thing on this side. I just try not to have it visible from over here.
Teleportation portal open.
Yeah, more like this. Little bit more sneaky. Yeah, the enemy team will see it if they go white room, but I find it's a lot less obvious than putting it here. It is a serious hazard of getting your teammates booped. So once more, think before you just copy and paste the TP. But yeah, I think it's definitely worth mentioning. You can move it here or move it here, or just I don't think I'll put it here, but just use your judgment. But yeah, this is another really good point. Cuts away a very substantial portion of the walk back, especially considering it's skipping the cliff. And yeah, no, I'm leaving that in. Fuck it, I'm not recording this again. That's not happening. Professional YouTuber here. The other thing I was going to mention about the Lijiang TP is if it circumvents geometry in the way. The one on that Lijiang map got around the choke, so any heroes with movement abilities would suddenly find themselves getting it back a lot faster comparatively. The one I actually want to show here doesn't quite work because ideally you do it while the door's coming down, and you actually get it going a little bit further. You can get it going around here. It's not like terrible by any means, but it could be better. But yeah, this one cuts down on just under the square here, and I think it's actually one of the best stall TPs in the, or like respawn TPs in the game. Just because it leaves you up on high ground there, it's relatively hard for the enemy team to peek back and be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get picked. Oh, they're above me. Also, just generally with control point maps in general, spawn TPs tend to be very strong if you can get them lined up correctly. Quite a few of the maps are very unfriendly to it. Somewhat the other points of Nepal can't be lined up properly, like the one with the houses. I can actually...
Teleportation portal open.
So the TP I just showed you is a really cool Volskaya TP, but also a really bad Volskaya TP. Now, why is it bad? Well, it's not exclusively bad. It can be bad if your team's trying to retake and manage to get a bunch of picks, but Volskaya in particular tends to have the fights end up very clean just because of how far the walkback is. That TP might go further than you could even place it straight. But just because of how far you have to walk back, you very rarely solve Volskaya. And the other big reason not to have a spawn TP on this map is the rotation TPs here are fantastic.
My teleporter is online.
Like the rotation TPs here between the megas are really good. You can also have it going high ground and just shoot down on enemies if they're not running a more mobile comp. If you need to contest high ground, you'll want to have your TP. It's a major utility device, and you're playing against dive. You really want TP to escape. You probably want it going between the health packs. So yeah, just the amount of immediate value you can get is far more than you can get out of a fancy smancy spawn TP. I've actually had I've had teammates yell at me for, oh, why don't you leave spawn TP on this map? And it's a great example of the best way to know if you're doing something right on Sim is if your teammates are telling you to do the opposite. That is one of the best pieces of advice on Sim. I have had people try and micro me so many times on this hero. It's a little bit silly. But yeah. Really the same, try and use your judgment. This is just a good example of when it's not actually worse, even though it might look very nice. So next up is Hollywood. Hollywood is an absolutely fantastic first point for Symmetra, and the spawn TP here is really, really good.
My teleporter is online.
I wouldn't rate it high. You might think I rate it higher, but actually it can be kind of awkward to get back to retake the point if the enemy team gains an advantage. So I wouldn't call it amazing, but it's definitely the main way I use TP on this point. Especially with how back and forth Hollywood can be anyways. The attackers also have a fair distance to walk back, so this can actually put the defense very heavily in your favor. I'm quite fond of it. Especially because of how much I hate second. Second's not a good time. These horrible things just make it so much harder than it should be. Just the way this map's laid out is not very sim friendly.
Teleportation portal open. We move.
I mean, yeah. Bonus tips from Abandoned. Skip that. Take high ground immediately. Oh yes, I was going to mention on offense as well. I sometimes like spawn TP on this. If you get a few picks and then lose the fight, I generally place a TP. The only problem with that is I really like the offensive options here. And yeah, that's kind of the main thing. It's, can I get immediate value with my TP? Can I get a substantial amount of immediate value with my TP? That's often the reason why you might say no to a spawn TP.
The true enemy of humanity is
So Reality is a little bit of an interesting one. I don't think I used spawn TP at the very beginning of the match, but once the enemy team pushes the payload up past that corner into the courtyard, that's when I would really consider the spawn TP. Just because that both tends to be when your TP's value decays a bit, and when I can... There we go. When this one becomes a bit nicer. This one's particularly good because it puts you on high ground instead of right next to the cliff per se, or in the open. I used to like doing this one a little bit because it completely hides the entrance if there's like a widow or something just peeking there. Not very aware, but I'm sure anybody who plays Lucio a fair amount is just salivating a little bit while I show you this, because yeah, this is a nice way to get booped off the map pretty consistently sometimes. Up here, meanwhile, is a very safe respawn TP, though special. I can't show Rialto without showing you second point. Second point is absolutely absurd and disgusting, and yeah, have I already called it teleporter the best spawn TP in the game? Well, this is up there. It puts you like your total walkback time. I got like 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I'm shooting people. It's absolutely absurd. And meanwhile, the attackers have to walk all the way back from over there. So if you're on a team that gets any picks during any fights and isn't just single-handedly rolled, this TP is great. I actually almost never use regular TPs on Rialto second defense, just because this one's so like easy to use. The exception to like if I'm doing it with Bastion main or something and I want to go and get creative.
My teleporter is online.
There's some funny standing TPs. But yeah, the thing I'm trying to get at is just use your judgment. What's valuable? How you gonna win your game besides just the shoots?
The true enemy of
So the last map I'm going to show is actually Eichenwald. Not because there aren't more spawn TPs to use, but just because the ones this one and kind of going down on the quality list, I just kind of keep in your head and go, is this actually good, this game? Is this going to benefit me? Because I'm walking out the wrong way, but yeah, this one does do a good job on cutting down the respawn time, but it also leaves you walking out of this terrible choke, which, ew. You ever just go on defense, you're just on the payload, and you just see somebody walk out of the room and bang, they're dead. Like, it's just such an easy room to go, oh yeah, defenders, good luck. It doesn't matter how fast they're respawning, you just kill them. Especially if you have an enemy builder, it's like, yeah, good luck stalling that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you have a better idea of when spawn TPs are good, and when's best to use them. I am planning on resurrecting my YouTube channel from the dead, and mayhaps doing more, but I am still active on twitch.tv/abandon_TV. Come and watch me there if you want to see shenanigans live. I'm like, where am I? I'm doing okay right now. pulling some shenanigans on the ladder. But yeah, thanks for dropping by the YouTube, and bye.